Tensions between the United States and North Korea are ramping up, considering Donald Trump's UN speech, where he had some pretty harsh words for North Korea and its missiles tests. Now, we're going to show you a little clip from his speech and then Kim Jong-un's response to it. Take a look.
Now, North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles threatens the entire world with unthinkable loss of human life. It is an outrage that some nations would not only trade with such a regime, but would arm, supply, and financially support a country that imperils the world with nuclear conflict. The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing, and able, but hopefully this will not be necessary.
Okay, it's always incredibly jarring for him to go from totally destroy North Korea and immediately follow it with Rocket Man. Like it's just, it's anyway. But
no, I got to jump in on that too. So actually, the first part of that was fine. He was saying, "What are you guys doing trading with North Korea when they endanger all these people?" I actually totally agree with that, and I think it's incumbent upon us to pressure China, and I think they're endangering the world with their relationship with North Korea. So some of that tough talk is necessary. But he can't help himself. He has to take it over the top with "we will totally destroy you." That's so unhelpful. And I'm coming at it from a person who believes in tough talk, but that's not productive. That's counterproductive for reasons that we're going to explain. And then when you say Rocket Man, I can't ever think of Rocket Man without thinking Rocket Man, right? You sound like an idiot. You sound like a goofy kid. And you destroyed any kind of gravitas you had there with your tough talk by going Rocket Man.
Right, exactly. And so, look.
Do you know the words to Rocket Man?
Of course not. All I know is Rocket Man.
That doesn't really happen in the song, I gotta be honest.
It kind of does, it kind of does.
All right, so that speech happened, and following Trump's speech, he did put some action behind his words, meaning that he did target some of those countries, China primarily, that do trade with North Korea. And so Trump signed an executive order expanding the authority of the United States and the Treasury Department to target individuals, banks, and other companies that finance or facilitate trade with North Korea. So he essentially beefed up the sanctions that the UN had passed earlier. Now,
maybe he could start by not having the Trump Corporation make all the clothes in China. That might be one way to go.
Ooh, that's a great point. But again, when it's just sanctions and it is meant to put pressure on the regime, I agree with that move. That's not necessarily a bad move at all. It's going to get worse, but so if he just left well enough alone, the tough talk and the sanctions and the tough actions is not necessarily a bad thing. It might be a good thing because they do need pressure.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've talked tough on North Korea. Here we said we might wipe them off the face of the earth.
That's
a little different.
Yes. Yeah, that's the difference, and that has unfortunately escalated the situation even further. And now, for the first time, Kim Jong-un has released a statement in the first person. I know that doesn't sound like a big deal to people in the United States, but for North Korea, this is unprecedented. Usually the dictator doesn't do that. And so Kim condemned Trump's threat to totally destroy North Korea if the United States is forced to defend itself. And he declared that it had, quote, convinced me rather than frightening or stopping me that the path I chose is correct and that it is the one I have to follow to the last. In a statement written in the first person, Kim also called Trump a mentally deranged US Dotard who had
Dotard, I think.
No, it's Dotard.
Dotard. Yeah,
yes.
Dotard, who had denied the existence of and insulted me and my country in front of the eyes of the world. So he's even more enraged about this. And there's an interesting twist because now North Korea sees itself as defending itself rather than being the aggressor.
Right, sure. We managed to turn them a little bit into the victims.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this, according to every expert on North Korea, is totally unprecedented. Sorry, and this is very serious, but and the reason is, it's one thing for the official state agency, which is what they do all the time, to do over-the-top statements. Oh, we'll destroy you, we'll have sex with your grandmothers, and whatever, right? We're going to take over, and they do that kind of nonsense all the time. And by the way, in a minute we'll get to hilarious put-downs of other U.S. officials that they've done in the past. And don't think we're just going to go past Dotard. We're going to explain what that is and how awesome that is. But okay. But they never have their leader actually make the statement, because their leader is seen as a deity. So they look at him as almost a god in North Korea. So his father and his grandfather, for all of their belligerence, never made a personal statement like this. Kim Jong-Un had never made a personal statement like this. For him to go on and say, no, now it's on and I'm never gonna back down, puts him in a corner where he can't possibly back down. Because then it's like God backing down. And
great.
And it's so, oh no, this has now gone to another level that is way worse.
Like DEFCON UN.
If you will.
Right, sure.
And so look, every once in a while when I see the different insults that are going back and forth, maniac, nut job,
Dotard,
obviously a madman, all these whatever, mentally deranged, I can't tell which one is Trump and which one is Kim Jong-Un.
Yeah, if you switched the quotes and just said who said this about the other, you'd be 50-50 on each one.
Yeah, and so if you had the North Korean leader saying outrageous, insane things, nobody's surprised by that. When you have the US leader saying the same things, oh no, that's different and terrible. So now they're talking about trying to prove that they could launch a nuke on an ICBM. So a long-range missile with a nuke on it, because they've done 6 different nuclear tests. They're all underground, which is where you're supposed to do them. First of all, don't do them, but if you do, they're supposed to be underground to contain the radiation. There's been no above-ground nuclear tests anywhere in the world for the last 37 years. The last time it happened was in China in 1980, and they tested it in the middle of the desert. And people were so outraged, it hasn't happened since. And now, all of a sudden, North Korea is saying, yes, we might do one in the atmosphere, and we might try to put it on a long-range missile. Now, remember, they already fired a long-range missile over Japan, and they've shown some competence here, which has surprised me.
2 over Japan, I think.
Yeah, and so, but they're still North Korea. Imagine if they screw up a long-range missile test with a nuke on it, and it falls short. And it falls short in Japan, or South Korea, or God knows where. Then nuclear war. So we boxed them into a corner in a way that was thoughtless. We could have done it in a sophisticated way, and this is why when Bush and Trump say they don't do nuance, it's a terrible idea. It's basically saying I am stupid and I see the world in a way that is black and white, and when you do that, you set everyone up for disaster.
But it's also, and it's also why the way Obama handled North Korea was far better. Yeah, we didn't solve the problem, neither is anyone else, but it was contained. We were never at this point. And it's also why, unbelievably, the Republicans managed to elect a guy substantially less qualified for this job than George W. Bush. Because as little nuance as he did, for the most part, the people negotiating with North Korea took it relatively seriously, right? We actually, the diplomatic corps did not completely crumble. They didn't appoint the head of, his Secretary of State wasn't the head of ExxonMobil, a guy who has no interest in this job.
Yeah, and so one of the other things we keep saying is, oh, they can't fire a long-range missile with nukes on it, thereby goading them to try. Yeah, don't do that. That's a really bad idea. And so that's, look, one maniac and you could perhaps avoid nuclear war. 2 maniacs on opposing sides, that's again a recipe for disaster. And then Kim Jong-Un said about Trump, quote, a frightened dog barks louder, okay? And Trump.
Kim Jong-Un said that about Trump. That was a perfect example. Trump could have said that about Kim Jong-Un.
Yeah, totally. We could play that game all day long. And look, when he would say things like that about Obama, Obama would be like, okay, whatever. It's the North Korean guy, I don't care, right? In fact, you know what he called Obama? He called him a monkey. And Obama's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not going to nuclear war because you hurt my feelings. Right? But Trump is not that guy. Trump's like, what did he say about me? Oh yeah, I'll show up, we'll totally destroy you, wipe off the map. And he's like, oh, okay, well, all right, let's get it on. This is just,
we're in a strange position where we're really praying that Nikki Haley saves the day.
Or Rex Tillerson. Oh my God.
Well,
anyway,
it would be of those two. It would be Nikki Haley.
Yes. All right. So Dotard. What does it mean? A state or period of senile decay marked by decline of mental poise and alertness.
It's like
I feel like it's correct though.
It's an old.
Like it was accurate.
It's a crazy old person.
Yeah.
But I did you know it was a word?
No, I didn't.
No, I didn't know it was either.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I'm almost sorry that it's not pronounced Dotard because it might. That having it enter the lexicon might have finally killed the other word that ends T-A-R-D. Everybody would have finally let that go as well. They should, and then we could just use
I know,
Dotard.
But unfortunately, it's specifically about older people.
Can you use the example that was given from the New York Times?
Yes.
Okay.
So New York Times went back in their archives to see how many times it had been used since 1980, and it's only 10 times out of all the articles they've ever written since 1980. And one of them said, it was a tale of a dotard husband cuckolded by his young wife.
Charles Pierce of Esquire, who's unquestionably worth following on Twitter, he used it about Trump in May. He called. They wrote about Trump. They called him a dotard. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's Kim Jong-Un reads Esquire.
So now I'm going to give you more put downs by the North Koreans of our different leaders. And some people are like, Dotard, kind of a little bit right. Okay, now some of course are outrageous and terrible, like calling Obama a monkey. They called Hillary Clinton, they said she looks like a primary school girl and sometimes a pensioner going shopping. I don't think either one of those things is true. I'm not offended by either one of those things. I just don't think it's quite a match.
Not really insults either.
Right. Yeah, you look like a schoolgirl. Okay.
You look like a pensioner, like somebody who worked hard is living on their pension and has to buy something.
Okay.
Yeah.
But John Kerry, they said, was a wolf with a hideous lantern jaw.
Oh my God.
Yeah, what kind of nailed it?
All right, come on.
Okay, sorry. And I like John Kerry, and George Bush, when he ducked the shoe that was thrown at him in 2008 in Iraq, they said he looked like a chicken soaked in the rain. I'm like, that's not bad either. They kind of have a facility with these insults.
God. Man, those reflexes though. That was an impressive video.
But he did kind of look like a chicken soaked in the rain.
That was probably the only time I was impressed by Bush. Anyway.
So, well, it's all fun and games until nuclear war starts. So
it's all fun and games until 1.6 million people get killed.
That's right. And so in all seriousness, guys, this is the issue that I think is by far the most important and why I look forward to a President Pence. For all of how outrageous Mike Pence is and how he would be more competent in getting Republican priorities passed, I'll take it in return for no nuclear war, which this buffoon is likely to start. I mean, I don't know that it's at 51% yet, but we are way undercounting how possible it is. If you like this clip of the Young Turks, you know there's a whole live 2-hour show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern every day, and you can download it or stream it and watch it without ads if you become a member. TYTnetwork.com/join.